Hello, this is Matt from Low Spec Action Squad here. I picked up the Dell Precision 490 for only 50 bucks. I planned on upgrading it, but before we get to that, let's go ahead and see what this puppy can do. For $50, it came with 8 gigabytes of RAM and a dual-core Xeon 5160, I believe. Let's go ahead and witness the power of this dual-core 3 GHz processor from 2006. It isn't too much, and unfortunately there's not much I can do for upgrades. You see, the Dell Precision 490 workstation does have 2 CPU sockets. However, the first generation of the motherboard was only able to support dual-core processors, the 5000, 5100, and possibly the 5200 series, although that one's sort of hit or miss on whether or not it works. And Dell isn't very helpful. They simply say any 5000 series processor on their website for CPU compatibility. So I actually bought some quad cores. That's how I found out that it doesn't work with quad core processors. But anyway, so there's a few things we're going to test today. I have a second dual-core processor that we're going to put in that second socket there, and that will be the very best that this particular 490 can support. That'll be 2 dual-core 3 GHz Xeon 5160s. I believe they have a front-side bus of 1333. Now I have upgraded this computer. It came with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I have 16 in there currently, so it isn't completely bone stock at the moment. I did that off camera. But that shouldn't affect the Cinebench score. It didn't have a video card, at least not one that I could use. It had... here it is. Originally, when I picked it up, it had a very strange graphics card. One of these old NVS 210s with a, I think it's a DB59 connector. Here's the card itself, the original one. Nothing special. It's got 256 megabytes of VRAM, some core clock, probably in the hundreds of megahertz. I don't know. Not something that I would consider useful, not in these days. So, while I was picking this Precision up, I also picked up an HD 5770. That is capable of DirectX 11, so not a bad haul. I only picked that up for 20 bucks too. So it's what's currently in here. Again, that shouldn't affect the Cinebench score, since the Cinebench, at least this one, is CPU only. But we're gonna see how well we can game on this thing. Unfortunately, when I picked it up, it didn't have hard drive cages, so sleds. So I had to pick these up on eBay. Paid about $4 each. It also didn't have the second heatsink because it only came with one CPU, so that was surprisingly expensive. I paid $7 for this dual-core CPU. I probably could have gotten a better deal, but in the end, a couple bucks isn't going to break the bank. However, the heatsink, this was $25. Yeesh. And that wasn't new, that was used. Regardless, once we get this Cinebench score, we're going to save it, and then we're going to put that second CPU in and see how well it scales with 2 CPUs. On these older systems, much like you can expect with SLI, you're not going to get 100% scaling. What you're going to get is somewhere closer to probably 75% of the second CPU, because you are going to lose some of that second CPU's power to the overhead of running them simultaneously. And it also depends on things like the interconnects between the CPUs. Back in the Socket 771 days, wasn't so good. At least, it wasn't perfected yet, at least. Modern CPUs and multi-CPU configurations, you can expect a better scaling, let's say, across multiple CPUs. Looks like we're almost done here. And I will show you the process of opening this computer and getting that all set up. It's pretty interesting. Okay, so 143. That's not too bad. It's not great. And you can see my other run here. We actually did one single point better, but that's probably within variance. So it looks like we are actually relatively close to an i5. Oh, that's a mobile CPU, isn't it? The 3317U. That's got to be a laptop CPU. Okay. So let's go ahead and power it. Oh, here's something interesting. In Cinebench, it lists this as Windows 8. But this is Windows 10. So I'm not sure what that's all about. Anyway, let's go ahead and power her down and see what we can do. This workstation is pretty heavy. So I'm thinking I'm going to name it Bertha. I've already applied the Low Spec Action Squad seal of approval. And it has never been more accurate. Alright, well let's go ahead and get this party started. The first thing I'm going to do is unplug everything, such as the power cable, DVI for the monitor, mouse, keyboard, and finally Ethernet. Now this is running the latest updates to Windows and all that fancy stuff. All the drivers are up to date, as well as much as they can be, at least with the 57 series graphics card. So let's go ahead and get a better look inside this beast. There's the power supply. I believe it's 750 watts. Let me double check that. Yes, 750 watts. So not a bad power supply. Here's the hard drive cage. And looks like they used a 90-degree SATA connector. I don't like that. Not like that. But there's not much I can do about it right now. I do have spares, but I'd have to reroute it and all that fancy stuff. Here is the connect for the SATA power, which goes up along here, and then eventually to the hard drives. I'm going to set the camera down and unplug that so we can open up the hard drive cage and replace the missing sleds. I'm going to go ahead and lift up on here. It's got enough tension to more or less stay where it belongs. Now this computer came with a, I believe it's a 320 gigabyte Western Digital Blue. Let's get this out of here carefully. Yes, 320 gigabytes. So, not a very big hard drive, but it has a, where is it? Manufacturing date of 2011, so it's not terribly old either. How is this going to be oriented? Like this? Yes, okay, so we're gonna orient it just like this with the interfaces towards the back. So we'll pop this into place in 1 and then in 2, and I believe it just slides in just like this. Okay, so there's 1. Now we can pop that in. I still find it a little strange that they used this particular 90 there, but I wonder if that's stock. I doubt it. Oh well, let's go ahead and put the second sled in, just in case I ever put a second hard drive in. Now, all I have to do is put that back down. Now this keeps the card locked in place, as well as this. Reattach the SATA power. Actually, no, I'm dumb. Don't reattach the SATA power and open this back up, because the hard drive isn't the only thing we were taking care of. We're going to put that second CPU in. Now let's see if I can get a good view of this. It's going to be just a moment while I fiddle with this tripod here. It's one of those tripods that supposedly can grab onto things, but I don't seem to have the greatest luck getting it to do that. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, that's probably going to be the best we're going to get for now. So, oh, that's still quite warm. Goodness. I think I'm going to remove this real quick for easier access to the second socket. Okay. I suppose I'll let the... yeah, I'll remove that. There we go. Now, looking at this second socket, it's quite dusty. Come on. I can see some dust. I'm going to be very gentle. I don't think I got it. Gee, that is not wanted to come out of there. I don't have any compressed air. Don't touch the sockets, by the way. It's a bad thing to do. So let's go ahead and grab that second CPU. We're going to go ahead and carefully align it. Set it in place. Now, since this is an LGA socket, we do not need to apply any force to the CPU itself. And in theory, even with PGA CPUs, you shouldn't need any force. Alright, now that that is installed, what we are going to do next is put on the thermal grease. I set it off to the side in preparation for this video, and immediately seem to have lost it. I am clearly well prepared. Okay, well, I suppose this will have to do. The person I bought the CPU from included some basic thermal paste. It's really bad stuff, but I guess it'll have to do for now. Not that these Xeons produce a lot of heat. I think they're 65. They're either 65 or 80 watt CPUs. So, we're going to go ahead and... oh, that SATA cable's in the way. Try and... for the moment, I'll unplug it, if I can. It really does not want to come out of there. Jeez. Come on. What? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, oh, great. Come on. Oh, it just really likes to be in the way. Okay. So, I have pre-cleaned the second cold plate for this cooler. We're gonna go ahead and set it in. Now it has captive screws, so I don't have to worry too much. All I need to do is get my screwdriver in there, and tighten them up in a star pattern. If I can get the screwdriver in there. Being careful with it is, of course. Unfortunately, the heads of these screws seem to be a little bit kind of munged up. This must have been removed and put back on several times. Last one. I know the camera can't see this very well, but oh well. Almost done. Okay. Now, before I forget and make myself look like a fool, I'll go ahead and put this SATA cable back in place. There's that. Get this back in there. Alrighty. Now, If I straighten out the legs of this tripod, maybe I can... Maybe not. Okay, let's try this. Okay. Almost. Okay, that'll have to do. I'm gonna go ahead, put this back down, fold this little bridge thing over, lock it in place, reconnect the SATA power now that the second CPU is in there, and now we should be good to go. In theory, at least. I'll get this tripod more or less set back up. Now I can put the panel back on. Leave it as this side first. Yes. Okay. Ooh. Did I mention it's quite heavy? Okay. Now what we want to do is connect everything back up. Ethernet, keyboard, mouse, DVI for the monitor, and power. Alright. Looks like it's automatically turning on. Let's see if we have been successful. Let's head straight into setup. Okay, processor info. It recognizes both of them. Now I did go out of my way to get the same stepping. You will run into problems if you don't do that. They have to be identical, or at least as close to identical as you can possibly get. If you don't have the same stepping, there's a very good chance they won't work. Alright, it looks like we're good to go. Okay, yes. Let's go ahead and head back into Windows. Get this better in the screen there. And we will just go ahead and run that Cinebench test again to see what we get this time. Now the past two runs were 142 and 143, if I remember correctly. Let's see what we get. It definitely boots into Windows faster, I will tell you that. Go ahead and go to downloads, that's where it is saved. Also, for the record, Diablo 3 works really good on 2 cores, surprisingly. Wait for it to finish whatever it's doing in the background. Okay. Don't care. Come on. The only downside to this old Western Digital Blue is it's only 5400 RPM, if I recall correctly. So loading times, if it's something that isn't limited by the CPU, is limited by the hard drive itself. Alrighty, so there's our previous saved score of 142, but we did get 143 above that. We'll go for 142 because, again, could be due to test variance. Let's go ahead and hit it. We should have 4 threads this time. Well, that's not supposed to happen. Let's go ahead and close this out. Huh. Let's see. Properties. BIOS showed 2 CPUs. This only shows 1. I doubt that it's a driver problem. Wasn't aware that CPUs... 1 socket, okay. That's... Huh. Okay. I guess I'm gonna have to end it here. Look forward to part 2 when I figure out what I did wrong. This is Matt from Low Spec Action Squad, signing out.